We are happy to welcome you today at the International Discussion on Creative Society. And we are happy to welcome guests from various parts of the world. Today we have Mikhail Kornienko from Russia, Pilot-Cosmonaut of the Russian Federation, hero of the Russian Federation, and record holder for an uninterrupted stay at the International Space Station. Mr. Douglas Vogt from the USA. He's a science writer, researcher, professional member of the Geological Society of America. We also have Professor Arthur Viterito from the USA as well, PhD in geography, policy advisor with the Heartland Institute. And our guest is also Elena Podladchikova, Doctor of Cosmophysics, astrophysicist, researcher at the World Radiation Center, Physical and Meteorological Observatory in Davos. Welcome, everyone. We are very happy to see you here today. And I pass the word to my co-host, Elena.
Hello, everyone. Really, I'm very happy to see you today, and it's a great honor to host today's discussion. Today, we will dive deeper into topics which were discussed at the International Online Conference Global Crisis Time for the Truth, which took place on December the 4th, 2021. After this conference, we received an overwhelming amount of comments and support from people worldwide. People understood the severity of the climate crisis and environmental degradation. And since the conference, unfortunately, many severe climatic catastrophes took place. And since then, many people have lost their lives, they have lost their homes. And we understand even more the urgency in sharing the information about the creative society as fast as possible with as many people as each of us can. This is why we are continuing the research and we are continuing our action. And we would like to announce that on May 7th, 2022, there will take place an international online forum, Global Crisis. We are people, we want to live, which will be streamed to thousands of channels with simultaneous interpretation into 100 languages. The truth will sound with renewed vigor. We invite all honest and concerned people, eyewitnesses of climatic disasters, people who deal with human slavery and refugees, and traffic victims to the International Forum. And also, we would like to invite scientists and experts to join us in telling on the truth. This will be a big day, and already today we are preparing for that global event. And today, I'm very happy that we have a possibility to continue our discussion. And my first question would be to Mikhail Kornienko. First, we are very glad to see you here with us today. You have much experience seeing people from different parts of the world united, working together. Was it easy to find a common ground and work all together, even though all people spoke a different language? Or could you please share some positive examples and benefits of uniting potential of people from all around the world and working as one group, having one common goal?
I will try to say shortly as the flight on the International Space Station. The project of the International Space Station is a really wonderful example for all of the humanity, how you can and how you have to work together. And on the station, there are 6 people constantly working, usually, which is the station crew. And this is both the US, American, Russian, Japanese, and Europeans. And we never had differences on the space station. There's just nothing to share, nothing to divide, nothing to conquer. And as our international colleagues are saying, we are all the same boat. And so this experience, I would just really like to put on Earth, actually. So all people on Earth would have this experience. And first of all, probably our political leaders, I think. I propose probably you need to launch all of the presidents of leading countries and as the portion of the International Space Station crew. And so it will be wonders on Earth, actually. Ecological problems as well, because on the bottom, everybody understands that there is a problem, really. And on the tops, it's just solved in a sort of bureaucratic way. And let's just push it forward, actually.
Thank you, Mr. Kornienko. This is really a great example. And it would be actually an interesting experiment also to send presidents to the International Space Station. But I think we can also do it here without sending anyone on, because we just need to understand that we are all on the same boat, and this boat is our planet Earth. So we don't need to go anywhere to do it. But nevertheless, we need to find common grounds and to understand that we need to unite to overcome the crisis, the climatic crisis and humanitarian crisis that we are facing and are about to face. And during the conference, Global Crisis, Time for the Truth, we saw the facts which were introduced by scientists that cyclicity is the main reason for climate change. And it happens every 12,000 years. And these cycles vary in intensity of destruction. And every other is always more destructive. So every 24,000 years, we experience the most drastic catastrophes and change. And the cycle in between is less destructive compared to the 24,000 year one, which is the one we are entering right now. So we have seen all these facts during the conference. And we also asked the questions, why is this truth not available to us? Why do we still see the misleading information about the CO2 being the main reason for the climate change? And it is absolutely absurd that we see people dying all the time because we support this wrong idea about the CO2. And it's a big business for someone that costs us the lives of many, many people every day. And during the conference, a video was premiered explaining to us that the glaciers of Antarctica are melting from the bottom up due to internal heat because hot magma rises up towards them. Under the glaciers, there is now warm water, which is heated by the subglacial volcanoes. So this shocking piece of information has been made public to a large audience for the first time. And before this, we have been led to believe that melting is the result of human activity. But it turns out to be an absolute lie. So let's watch a video about the glaciers now.
Everyone has already heard that glaciers are melting catastrophically fast. But have you heard about how exactly they are melting? 90% of all glaciers on the planet are located in Antarctica, where they are disappearing the fastest. What is striking is that this is taking place solely in the western part of Antarctica, whereas in the east, record-breaking cold temperatures are being recorded. A logical question arises: why is Antarctica melting only on one side? And the answer is quite simple. West Antarctica has a totally different geology. It consists of thin blocks of the Earth's crust that are separated from each other by large tectonic faults, rift zones. And in these zones, greater amounts of heat are released. For example, scientists from Germany and the British Antarctic Survey mapped the geothermal heat flow in West Antarctica using data from aeromagnetic observations beneath the Thwaites Glacier. they discovered an area where a huge amount of heat comes from the Earth's bowels. According to scientists, this is due to the fact that the glacier lies in a tectonic trench where the Earth's crust is much thinner. Surprisingly enough, West Antarctica is one of the largest volcanic regions on Earth. There are more than 140 volcanoes sleeping under the ice, and they are now much more active than the scientific community previously believed. A team of researchers from the University of Rhode Island discovered a new factor in the rapid melting of the Pine Island Glacier in Antarctica. It's an earlier unidentified active volcano buried deep beneath the ice. Evidence of volcanism was indicated by high concentrations of the helium isotope, which comes exclusively from the Earth's mantle. According to Professor Karen Haywood, geothermal heat from the West Antarctic Rift warms the ocean water. This in turn leads to the acceleration of ice sheet melting. Thus, it is the geothermal heat from volcanoes that is contributing to the rapid melting of the Antarctic ice sheet, not global warming at all. But why are there so many volcanoes under the ice of Antarctica? NASA experts have found out the reason based on data from NASA's IceSat and IceBridge satellites. They have concluded that under the surface of West Antarctica, there is a large mantle plume that is a flow of red-hot magma which rises and expands beneath the Earth's crust. According to the scientists' calculations, this area is warming with almost the same intensity as the Yellowstone supervolcano. The heat flux measures 150 milliwatts per square meter, reaching 180 in the rift areas. This is about 3 times as much heat as the adjacent rock layers receive. Thus, all indications are that glaciers in Antarctica are melting not at all due to anthropogenic factors, but due to the volcanic heat. At the same time, the temperature of the Earth's crust is rising and parts of the territory are elevating abnormally. Why does the scientific community ignore the connection between all these phenomena? Equally intense ice melting is also taking place on another part of the planet, in Greenland. Research conducted in October 2020 showed that Greenland's ice is now melting faster than ever before in the past 12,000 years. In 2019 alone, Greenland's ice sheet lost 600 billion tons. It is also surprising that giant lakes appear under the surface of the glacier, which is actually 1.5 kilometers thick. As of today, we already know about 6 dozen subglacial lakes of Greenland. The temperature of the ice surrounding them is around minus 28 degrees Celsius. But these lakes do not freeze. Why? Several research groups of scientists joined in the effort to find an answer to this very question. They discovered the fact that under Greenland, just as under Antarctica, there is a mantle plume. Geothermal flows coming from its bowels cause formation of subglacial lakes and melting of glaciers. Using gravitational research, a team of American scientists led by Professor Ralph von Friese estimated the thickness of Greenland's crust. Active melting of glaciers has been observed in the northern part of the island, where the crust is thinner and an increased geothermal flow due to the rising mantle plume has been detected. Using seismic tomography data, scientists from an interdisciplinary team at the Schmidt Institute of Physics of the Earth saw that the flow of magma rises from the center of the core to the Earth's surface right beneath the central part of Greenland. This is where the largest number of subglacial lakes are located. The scientists have calculated the theoretical heat flux corresponding to this magma chamber and found that this heat is sufficient to warm the base of the glacier up to the melting point of the ice. These same results have been confirmed by similar studies using machine learning technology. It is obvious that the world's 2 largest glacial regions, Antarctica and Greenland, are melting because of increased geothermal flows coming from the interior of the planet. But what is intensifying them? Mantle plumes have been beneath the glaciers for millions of years, but it is today that their magma rises closer to the Earth's surface and causes increased heating of the Earth's crust from the inside. This indicates that abnormal processes are starting to occur in the bowels of the Earth, in its very core. And the main question is, why is it happening precisely now? This answer is simple: cyclical changes on a planetary scale occurring every 12,000 years. The melting of glaciers is only a part of the chain of climatic events that will lead to an imminent catastrophe already in the near future. Today, it is extremely important to unite the entire world scientific community in order to thoroughly study the real causes of climate change and prevent a great tragedy.
The anthropogenic factor has nothing to do with the climate change, and magma rises not only under Antarctica and Greenland, but also in areas of thin crusts, and this is primarily the oceanic crust. So I would like to ask a question to Professor Viterito. You have discovered and spoke at the conference about an alarming trend in geothermal heat at the bottom of the ocean. And by the way, I invite all our viewers to watch your speech at the conference Global Crisis Time for the Truth. We will leave the link to the conference below this video. And also, we know that you, Professor, have already looked at the magnetic field changes data as well. Could you please tell us more about these and why all these phenomena are correlated in your opinion? I mean, correlated seismicity at the bottom of ocean, global temperature, and changes in the magnetic field.
Unfortunately, the data set that we have for this is very, very short. My data sets go back to 1979 because this is when we can correlate global temperatures derived from satellite platforms with the oceanic seismic activity. Because this is when we had the worldwide seismic network, which morphed into what's called the GSN, or the Global Seismic Network, which is what we work with today. So the data stream is very, very short, but we do see some interesting cycles and trends that appear to be emerging. That is, the amount of mid-ocean volcanic activity appears to be increasing. We had one large jump in 1995, which gave us a significant warming in terms of a global signal of about 0.4 degrees Celsius, which has remained elevated since then. But we saw another jump back in 2014, which was a harbinger of the 2016 Super El Nino that we had. So we're beginning to see that mid-ocean seismic activity does have an impact on global temperatures. It also does appear to have an impact on global snow and ice cover, particularly in the Arctic region, because the Arctic region is underlain by the Arctic Ocean. The Arctic Ocean, of course, is fed by the Northern Atlantic Ocean, and we have the meridional overturning circulation feeding warm water into the Arctic. And we see that this has been amplified starting in 1995, so that we have a huge surge in oceanic heat. This is well documented in the literature. Beginning in 1995, we've seen a steady and significant decline in Arctic sea ice, also in land snow and ice. And as a result, we've seen rising temperatures, also accompanied by declining cloud cover in the Arctic region. All these systems seem to be highly linked. We're also seeing rapid shifts in the what's called the dipole. The geomagnetic North Pole jumped very, very suddenly, and it had its largest jump in recorded history, going back to I think it's 1591. In 1995, we had an enormous jump at the rate at which the dipole moves, because it's constantly shifting. And it actually doubled its rate of movement in the course of 1 year. This, of course, has implications for the strengthening and or the weakening of the magnetic field. And this, of course, could have dire impacts down the line if, in fact, the magnetic field does weaken. I think the data is inconclusive this far as to where the trend is going to go, if it's going to continue, but we continue to monitor this on a literally, in my work, on a literally day-to-day basis to see how these things are changing over time. We have documented significant change starting in 1979, the biggest change occurring in 1995, and we're seeing other changes, and we're trying to document these as we speak.
Yeah, that's important data. Yes, I wanted to pass the floor to Elizabeth, please.
Да, я хотела бы дополнить, что исследования Артура Витерита, они действительно уникальны в своем роде, потому что Артур собрал данные о сейсмичности.
Yes, I would like to add that Artur Viterito's research is unique because Artur collected data from on seismicity on the bottom of oceans and detected an obvious trend in magnitude of earthquakes. Also, the frequency of earthquakes is increasing, and also there are latest studies that the depth of the earthquakes has also increased. Also, Professor Viterito's study is unique because he built correlation diagrams for seismicity and correlation with the global temperature increase. And the data on global temperatures has been checked and verified, not those which were taken from cities or volcanoes, but which actually show the real and global temperature increase. And there is a very high degree of correlation. It's the correlation ratio is 0.7%. So also we know that Professor Viterito has detected a correlation with the changes in the magnetic field. Basically, in the video which we have just watched about the glaciers melting, we can see that glaciers are melting because something is hitting them from the bottom. Also, we see the increased seismic activity at the bottom of the ocean. In a couple of years after that, it affects the temperatures of the atmosphere, and now we know very well that the ocean is heating, and everyone knows about this, but Artur Viterito also saying that the heating is going from bottom upwards, and this is not very just a few people know about this and speak about this. And this is the reason why glaciers are melting, because the volcanic and magma activity is increasing under Antarctica, under Greenland. It's an unprecedented and very crucial information which has to involve as many scientists as possible to study this comprehensively so that as many people as possible would know the real cause of what is happening. Also, it is interesting that at the conference on December 4th, there was a little video about what is happening to the core of our planet. And the video contains proofs, according to latest studies, that our core, planet's core, behaves in an abnormal way. The forces which the core is shifted, and that's why we see the seismic and magnetic activity increase. Just as Professor Vita has said, that the magnetic field is now weakening, but also we can see the North magnetic pole drift over the last couple of decades. Basically, this is a cycle phenomenon on our planet, and that's what we tried to show on the conference, that basically this is cyclicity, which actually is due to 12,000 year cycles. I think that now we will find more about cycles from Douglas Walker.
Data supports the 12,000 years cycle when the global cataclysms happen on our planet. And we saw that first there's a sharp shift of the magnetic poles that occurs, and then the glaciation in the geological layers. And all of this is also associated with solar flares. And we also know that before the peak of these cataclysms, first, there's an increase in the activation of all the processes inside our planet. And for example, so the seismic activity and the heating, as we just said, as well as magnetic pole excursions. And so this is why we would like to ask the expert in this, Mr. Douglas Vogt. So from your research, why are these changes taking place before the peak of the cataclysms on
The reason why is this, that no one before me had ever figured it out. There's two ways to describe the universe. The science we have all been taught was a matter-oriented theory of existence. I developed an information theory of existence. In 1979, I discovered 6 blank periods in space. There were no stars visible. 4 of the 6 were 12,068 light years apart. On the Gleisberg cycle, which I had mentioned earlier, our 8 sunspot maximums, 136 Gleisberg cycles is 12,068 years. I correlated that with carbon-14 dating of glacial moraine until back to about 72,000 years ago. And the cycle looks every roughly 12,000 years. You got another ice age. The mechanism is pretty simple. What's going on in the center of the Earth is some of the same carrier waves that are going on in the center of the sun. So sunspot maximum, you have an increase in solar output. I once tracked that if you have a whole bunch of solar output, within 4 to 6 months after, you have an increase in earthquakes on the Earth. So no one understood that mechanism, and Art hopefully will go look into it too, or if he calls me up or sends me an email, I'll tell him the rest of the story. But the reason why the glaciers are melting is because our sun's output has been increasing since 1957, 58. Now it does vary, goes up and down during the sunspot cycles, but the last ones have been greater and greater until this thing goes off. So you're going to have more earthquakes, you're going to have more volcanoes going off as you get closer to this reversal, because what's going on in the center of the Earth, which is not an iron core, and I cover that in the on YouTube on my Dihole Foundation, it can't be. It's too easy to prove wrong. And that's what's going on, why the volcanoes are going off, and why it's getting warmer and everything's melting. And the glaciers are melting, both from the solar output as well as volcanoes underneath Greenland and Antarctica. Art can tell you he's been studying the volcanoes in the ocean, and I think he'll probably tell you there's been an increase, but it does follow the same solar cycle pattern, but it's lags by about a year to maybe a year and a half. And that's it. We're dealing with the universe is the product of information. This 12,068 year cycle is a clock cycle. And that's what's going on. That's why no one ever figured it out. And it's because you have to have an information theory of existence to figure that part out. That's the mechanism.
Если позволите, я также хотела бы высказать огромное...
Allow me, I would like also to say a huge gratitude to Douglas Vogt, because your research is unique. In different books and articles, Douglas Vogt analyzed and those geological layers that indicate those terrible cataclysms that are happening on the planet. And for whole humanity, this is a huge gift that there are such people, such researchers, who actually understand how serious it is, how this is big threat to all of humanity. And despite that, alone, he analyzed and gathered so much information that right now for us it's much easier to understand everything. And we are volunteers of Creative Society project. We are really attentively was watching videos and reading books of Douglas Vogt, and everyone who is interested in the topic of cyclicity, we invite you to also read these books and see these data, because there is colossal volume of geological and hematological information from the point of view of glaciers, because when the cycle, how the cycle ends with the with ice, and that's why this is so important to understand the true cause. I'm a little emotional, but I'm just really sincerely admire those people, those who gathered at today's roundtable. So thank you so much.
I have to sign off now because I have things I have to do. But thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, today with us is specialist astrophysicist who's studying the sun and what happens on it. Elena also sees that it's not everything so well on the sun as we are being told, and the huge gratitude to Elena for courage and for the call for unification that she voiced at the conference on December 4th. Also, Elena participated in a discussion about the cycle of cataclysms of 12,000 years, and you can find this discussion on the Creative Society channel. You can find the link in the description of this video. And what is interesting that at the conference the material was presented at the video about the latest data, latest research data about that the climate change is happening not only on Earth, it happens at all planets of the solar system and including Sun. And Elena exactly can share more information about what is actually happening to the sun. But what is interesting, that we understand that this cycle of 12,000 years, it's related to galactic processes, because it affects whole entire solar system, and even the entire arm of our galaxy is under the influenced by this cycle. So the question to Elena is, first question, what is happening to the sun now? And second question, could you tell us more how well we understand about galactic interactions? How galactic rays affect the planet or the core of the planet? How well we understand this? Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for your words. I also would like to share that I also participate in the European competition and to fly to the ICC, and there are 12,000 candidates. Yeah, we're gonna we wish you luck. Yes, so I would like to say thank you for this interesting questions. These questions are really good. They are studied really good by official science. I will even tell you from not only from my name, but from the point of view of official science, because my specialty is that I'm a physics of solar system. How do we study it? What we know for sure, we know the cyclicity of solar activity. For the first time, Carrington suggested in 1857 suggested the connection between the sun and Earth. There was a solar flare, and after that, for 2 days, the telegraph didn't work on the planet Earth, and for that time, it was a disaster, of course. And since then, we investigated really good, of course, interactions between the Sun and Earth, solar activity and cyclicity. We study cyclicity by the number of sunspots on the Sun, and the very good scientists measure it as 600 years since the time of Galileo Galilei, who dared to put and study Sun with his telescope. So, by the number of spots that these flares produce, we can determine the cyclicity, and the first cycle is 11 years. This is such property of a periodic process of harmonic, and it can be multiplied by 2. The next cycle that we know, this is 100-year cycle. We have maximum and minimum every 100 years. Here, let me quote Russian scientist Chizhevsky, who suggested in the middle of 20th century that the cyclicity, actually, we know a correlation, for example, of the heart attacks from the solar activity. We know the mechanisms. We have blood running through our veins, and we have electrons as well. And we are people as an electromagnetic system. We depend from the solar activity. We don't study this, as far as I know, the changes of the field, but we study the quick changes of magnetic field of the Earth. For example, we know that the flares give rise to geomagnetic storms and temporary changes in magnetic field, and the human get used to living in variable magnetic field. For example, if for a long time there is no flares, sometimes all of us has such a feeling when you don't want to do anything, and nothing changes for a long period of time, but our alpha rhythms in the brain, they actually correspond to the rhythms of the Earth. This is also known as the Schumann resonance. We learned it in the institute. So regarding cyclicity, what we know for sure, correlation, 95% that we entered the period of great 200 years solar minimum, and this last 600 years are being studied very well. We know the minimum mountain and minimum Dalton. There have been such minimums, and historically during such periods occurred not really nice things. Okay, we are small human beings, but the sun is really huge, and it has huge gravity, a huge electromagnetic field, and even small changes, even 1 degree in temperature, can cause the reaction in various processes on Earth. I don't want to quote, but probably I have to. For example, famine in Ireland. Everyone knows about it, when 4 million people died because there was no potato. Just no crops of potato. It happened during previous 200-year minimum cycle. So maybe you remember the epidemic, plague epidemic. It was also during this minimum. Newton was also mentioned about it, and these are processes which is really hard to control. Now we have this progress, maybe we will be able to influence this, but this solar minimums are absolutely no. So we actually entered this period, and they are really small. They are not being generated by sun. What does it mean? That the magnetic field of the sun works like a top in general. There is generation of a magnetic field, and sun doesn't generate magnetic field right now, or generates less, and it will continue till 2045. reduced magnetic field. It doesn't mean that it will be colder here, maybe it will be warmer here, because other mechanisms are being activated here. As Lisa mentioned, the mechanism of galactic and sun rays to the Earth are being activated. Protons and electrons, gamma radiation, it comes from the sun during strong solar flames, also plasma clouds. Earth's magnetic sphere protects us from them, but sometimes they interrelate with the Earth's magnetic field and they provoke the aurora. But there are also more strong radiation. These are the same charged particles, but they come with a more strong energy and they come from other stars. And when our sun generates really strong magnetic field during maximum, this magnetic field can shield these rays, but during the minimum, these rays are not being shielded. They penetrate the Earth's atmosphere, and when this particle, it generates cloud. They are being registered this year in those climatic zones where they wasn't observed usually before. And at the moment, for now, 10 years, these cosmic rays bombard the atmosphere of the Earth because magnetic field is not shield these rays, and it will continue to go on. During this technological process of the Earth, practically no one was studying this issue because there was no opportunity to study this rays. But right now, we already do, and we see that there are a lot of such cosmic rays. So what I would like to say that how much we know, astrophysicists, how much we know about other stars, how to say it better. We can choose axioms to investigate this. We know that this is time, this is space, but in general, let me quote Stephen Hawking or Zildovich, Russian scientists as well. They were talking to each other, and they were saying that yes, we observe the radiation of distant stars. It is true only if we agree what is space and time, but if we change the definition of time and space, which are completely different on the large distances, maybe we observe something completely different. We build a picture, but astrophysics evolving very quickly. We understood that the center of the galaxy actually is at the other place. It's actually much closer by 1/3 because tools have changed. We started to measure it more precisely. We started to account curvature of the space, which we didn't take into account before. Maybe the gravitational force on a large distance, taking into account the curvature of the space, perhaps the light works different. And when we come to these issues, we are like children. We know not much information. For example, black holes wasn't studied before really much. What do we know about black holes? That it attracts everything to itself. This is really heavy field. Stephen Hawking actually studied the issue of radiation of the black hole and rotation of black holes. In general, our galaxies and other galaxies, they are full of sources of laser radiation. It's laser radiation. It's almost like laser. There are molecular clouds, and they may be coherent. We always find new facts which are not fitting to our understanding of the world. Probably that's it, dear friends. Thank you so much. We are waiting for huge discoveries because we have many new discoveries. We have many facts which are not fitting into our understanding. Thank you so much, Elena. This is really interesting, everything what you've shared, and thank you for your honest answer. We as a humanity still yet to discover a lot of things, and I would like to pay attention to this coincidence, what is actually going on here right now, at these days. On the one hand, we see activation of the geodynamic of the planet. We see increase in the seismic activity, changes in the core, the heat that comes from the bubbles of the Earth, and at the same time we see that there is solar minimum on the Sun. It is anomaly long, and at the same time magnetic field doesn't protect us from the space radiation. And right now, when we communicate with you, there is an increased flow of galactic radiation from space to the Earth, and that Elena was talking about this in the last discussion as well. This is really dangerous phenomena, and we don't know much about it, and we don't understand much about it. But what is interesting for me as a geologist, when we consider these processes at the same time, that by some amazing coincidence, there is something that affects the core of our planet, that it starts to shift dramatically. Crystallization takes place. New layers takes place, which the physics are observing. There is third core, third layer in our core, and it feels like something really strong on the molecular level actually affects us, probably something that we don't know yet. These processes that's happening from the inside out, they happening on many planets of the planet, and you can watch more information on the conference. This is exactly the changes that they take place because of the heating from inside out on other planets as well. And together with physicists, astrophysicists, volcanologists, and all the specialists, we should sit at one table with all the people who understand that serious changes take place on Earth, and we need to understand what is really happening, because we need to know what we can do to the situation. And of course, when we talk about anthropogenic factor as political or economical instrument, this looks very ridiculous when the cataclysms are growing stronger and stronger, and according to all trends, we don't have much time at all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for your opinion. And for first of all, I would like to thank everyone that you are here today, because this is the unprecedented example how honest and open people, scientists and specialists, can unite independently and start discussion the topics which are crucial and important to every person living on this planet today, because we all understand that climate change is the most dangerous enemy we have ever faced together as humanity. And definitely now it's time for scientific solutions and for their practical applications. And this climate impact, we are already experiencing it now. Just imagine how many of us will survive if we have no countermeasures against this most dangerous enemy. And talking about the mainstream scientists, we always ask these questions. What are they doing right now? Where are they? Who do they work for? Why don't they understand that the countdown for all of us has already begun? And we are losing precious time with every second that passes. And this is why I would like to ask you, Mr. Kornienko, please share your opinion about the importance of union between scientists driven by the same goal to find a scientific solution to how we can survive through the period of the dramatic climatic crisis.
Спасибо большое за предоставленное слово. Первое, что бы я хотел сказать...
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. First of all, I would like to say that for me, it's a great honor to participate in this discussion with such highly esteemed professional scientists. I've always been confident, and I know that this world is moved not by the politicians, but by scientists. And me, as an astronaut, a cosmonaut, I'm only the hands of scientists, because the scientists are the brain, but I'm only the executor of what scientists tell me to do there in space. But what kind of thoughts I got during our conversation? I think, in my opinion, we are quite correctly trying to understand things which are so far not quite understandable. We are existing on this planet. If we take the entire cycle and period of the existence of the solar system, it's 4 billion years, if I'm not mistaken. But we are existing for like a nanosecond compared to this whole period of time. We are trying to understand the processes which are hardly understandable to us right now. We are living some milliseconds on this planet. We still fail to understand how our brain is working. We understand less than 1% about the operation of our brain. At the same time, we're trying to make some conclusions regarding the processes taking place within the planet, in geophysics, in the atmosphere. I know that in order to forecast weather, you need to collect data from every square kilometer of our Earth, but we cannot do this either, and we still have only 60% of the weather forecast. So I would like to call everyone. I see the disaster which we are creating. I saw it from the orbit myself. This disaster is flowing in the ocean, in the Pacific Ocean, and the size of this plastic patch is like California, and we have so many sites of disaster right now on the planet, and this is what we can cope with. We can fight it, but we cannot cope with the changes in the Earth's core, just like the weather things, and we need to clean our planet. That's the problem, because we will have nothing to breathe with. We've made a big garbage dump from the Africa. It's the same as you would take your kitchen and put the garbage in the kitchen and feel like you're okay in the living room, in the neighboring room. That's wrong, and we need to do something about it. So I call you to focus your attention and efforts on that. Although, of course, a lot depends on politicians. But aside from the green agenda, nothing is being done. If you are so active with green agenda, please invest money into cleaning the Pacific Ocean. But soon we will have nowhere to sail, and fish will have no place to live. These like spontaneous thoughts on my side, but I think you will understand me correctly. Thank you very much for your attention.
Of course. Thank you so much, Mikhail Borisovich. You said it precisely, that we actually polluted our planet completely. And what is worse, that in the format of society where we live, where the main value is money, in a consumer society, ecological measures are not profitable. For big business, for small business, it will never be profitable, because the goals and objectives of a consumer society is to earn money. That's why ecological issues in the format where we live, they will only grow and get worse. That's why we need to change the format of society. That's why we need creative society.
действительно сейчас все по той же причине.
The same reason, the value of human life. It's not appreciated. And many people have become climate refugees. Large number of people died from the cataclysm. Creative Society volunteers. We create multiple projects and monitor climatic events. So we cover breaking news about climate from all over the world. So we see where it goes. We take interviews with scientists from all over the world. And we see that in the same consumer type of society, only the theory of CO2 are being sold and the anthropogenic factor. But honest scientists who sees this trend, including those who are present with us today, they don't receive funding and they don't have printing of the articles. And exactly that's why we implement the Creative Society project, because only within the framework of this Creative Society project, unification of scientists is possible for the sake of not a single person to suffer on the planet Earth. During this time, when the cataclysms are growing, and we already have these technologies to predict the cataclysms, we have the supercomputers, we have modern globalization systems in order to evacuate people, but no one does that. Exactly, that's why it's so important to understand the true reasons of what is going on and understand what we are capable of if we unite our efforts towards a common goal, a creative society. Thank you so much.
Here I would like to add for our viewers also, what is the project Creative Society? Actually, the goal of this project is to unite all people in the world to build a society where the main value is human life. And the goal of society is to ensure and guarantee, I repeat it, to ensure and guarantee the value of everyone's life. And this is an absolutely independent platform there we people unite, we mobilize, we act independently, and we have no affiliation to any political or economic organizations. We are simple people who want to live in a world which will be prosperous and safe for everyone. And I know that all our guests today are people who share the same goal. We all want to live in the world where people are protected, where we really value human life. But I would like to ask you, dear guests, today, please share your opinion how we can spread the information that such platform already exists, there you can unite, there we can, as mankind, in the shortest time, come to the global world dialogue. Please give your opinion what all of us we can do in order to spread this information, in order more people to join this discussion and this world dialogue.
I think you've got a very good head start in that you are bringing a lot of people together to enter into the discussion.
Thank you very much. Sorry.
Good. These types of activities, these types of conferences are critically important to getting these sorts of messages out there. And I think the key messages have to be the following. First of all, the science has to be dispassionate. It has to have as its ultimate goal the seeking of the truth. We need to know what the truth is. What does drive these systems? What are the consequences of these systems changing? How do we adapt to those changes? What sorts of mitigating factors can we throw in here? Ultimately, this is all scientifically ascertainable to a large degree. What I think needs to be taken out of the system is all the politicization of these issues. And it appears to me that the politics is driving the science, not the science driving the politics. And unfortunately, I don't know how to change that. We all have to, I think, be advocates for the science and activists in the science to make that sort of thing happen. Because I know here in the United States, it's a terrible problem of trying to wrest power from a small group of scientists that have a political and an economic agenda for their research. It's very hard for us to get published in recognized journals. It's hard for us to get our word out there. It's hard for us to frame honest and truthful questions and to seek honest and truthful answers to those questions. And that sort of structure needs to be changed. And again, through conferences such as this is one way to approach this. I applaud you for the depth and the breadth of the information you have presented to the public here. I think you need to keep your mission going, keep it going as strongly as you possibly can, and to involve as many voices as you possibly can. There are a number of allies out there who I think would be very, very sympathetic and very, very supportive of your mission out there. And yes, I am one of those folks who was sort of not allowed to speak openly and freely and had a very difficult time getting my research published based on that very fact. In fact, I was pretty much told on by one editor from one journal, this is interesting, but don't you know that carbon dioxide is what's really controlling the climate? And that was the end of the discussion. We won't review it any further. We don't want to hear anything else. So this sort of closed-mindedness that has developed towards the science of climate and environmental change definitely needs to be changed. There's a large cultural change that needs to occur within the scientific community. But then again, the scientific community is very strongly wed to the political and the funding streams that keep it alive. So that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of advocacy, and I'm perfectly willing to be one of those advocates.
Professor Viterito, thank you very much for speaking openly on these issues that are plaguing the scientific community today. And also the worst part in all of this is that this doesn't only affect scientists, but this also affects us as humanity, because right now we really need to focus on the problems that need to be solved. And it is true that if we take out politics, money, and personal interests out of the equation here and put saving human lives as being the ultimate goal, only then we will be able to redirect the scientific potential to what is really needed by the society today, by us as humanity. And thanks again for openly exposing these things that no one wants you to tell the truth. And you're only being paid and allowed to speak or publish any papers if and only when they support the official CO2 theory or any other theory that is being taken as the fundamental of what we know. So thanks again for saying this out loud and for your efforts in bringing the truth back to the people.
Awesome. Thank you, Alexei. And also, I would like to say that today discussion is unique because also we were lucky to invite and that you participated specialists from different spheres. And each of you is a specialist in deep research, and you've spent tens of years in your sphere and your subject. And what we understand today that you brought the knowledge, each of you today, you brought the knowledge, and we are capable to put it together. So I would like again to appeal to this main goal. And Elena, I wanted to ask you, what can be done today and how important it is to call all scientific world together to this open world discussion. The importance of this unity is obvious, even based on today's example of our roundtable, our discussion. But let's discuss what we can do together to call for all scientists and to bring them together.
Друзья мои,
Thank you so much, dear friends. Today, I was really interested and it was really useful for me to be here. For example, such specialists in solar physics as I am, they almost never work with geology, so I learned so much for myself, so much knowledge from different fields of activity. And I would like to say that catastrophes, I completely agree with everything that in institute we had such a theory of catastrophe or beautiful house, which is also called chaos theory. Sometimes this process, which seems to us chaotic, there is different certain laws which can be found, and scientists do find them. Sometimes they, it seems that they describe completely incomprehensible and huge number of data, and suddenly they see the pattern in this, and this is the beauty of a science when such things take place. I think exactly today we have advanced and moved forward in this, even in such discussions in different fields of activity, different areas, and I'm very glad I found a lot of new information for myself, which I will continue to use in my further research, which I will analyze further. I think people should just become kinder. If something will happen that which already happened before, for example, in Ireland, 400 million refugees, if somewhere suddenly will be 400 refugees, will we as a humanity, are we ready to give a helping hand, to share with them a piece of bread? Are we ready for this? I think that today's meeting, it can change mindset of people a little bit, and to understand that we must be ready for such things. And then together we'll be able to find solution. So, dear friends, what can I say? I am happily share with you the part of knowledge which our science is carries, and regarding the science publications, science articles, of course, I know that it's important to publish them because it's being quoted. It's impossible to publish the article if it's completely new. It's necessarily should show confirmations, show results, to show the amount of money spent on research and that we confirm this, and something really small we add to this, then your article is being published if it's being done this way. But they are actually not interested, and exactly this platform, our platform, it gives tremendous opportunities for discussion and for the dialogue, for exchange of information, and ordinary people and people from all over the world, if they will get interested, because people need knowledge. This is true interest. Regarding my field of research, allow me to quote Immanuel Kant, that he was saying that the human will be always interested in the starry sky above him and the inner laws inside him. So this is really interesting. And if we say by simple language, not a dry academic language like before people was speaking in Latin and people couldn't understand anything, and when we translate, let's say from a Latin, from a dead language to understandable language, this is just wonderful, and thank you so much for that. I think we should just keep going this way. Thank you so much. And yeah, the other thing I would like to add is that what I like in physics is such process, as I was saying, it's called the process of self-organization. In English, self-organized criticality. This is a well-known process which is organized under the influence of a large external force. When this large external force disappears, then nothing else happens to this system. But the process of self-organization sometimes, in critical conditions, it can take place with many elements. For example, people, when they interact with each other. Physics, it's also known as a phase transition, second-order phase transition. And a simple example of this process is you take a water and slowly cool it down and somewhere you would start interference, and then the water will quickly turn to ice, and from unpredictable behavior of a lot of liquid molecules will appear ice. And such example of such fast transition is exactly called a disaster in a good sense of the word. It seems to me that we, people, we can self-organize like this by exactly this process of self-organizing criticality. When we have these critical conditions, or there are critical temperatures, when we interact with each other, for example, I will share about this meeting with my 3 friends scientists, and they will share with someone else, and exactly this process will take place, which will lead us to another better world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, as it was mentioned at the conference, Global Crisis: Time for the Truth, the biggest catastrophe of humanity is that we lose our possibility to feel compassion to other people, and this is the main catastrophe. And creative society is all about really evolving as humans, those who have soul, who have compassion, who have love, who are capable to care about each other. And it's a society in which we can live being true humans, really without hiding the truth from each other, without being thriving only for money. We want to live as people, and the science in the creative society has enormous potential and no borders to develop. And this inspires me always a lot, because I think we cannot even imagine how the level of scientific researches we can achieve altogether if really we change the way of thinking from the consumeristic towards creative society. And really, thank you so much for being with us today. And today's conference, today's open discussion showed that dialogue is possible. We can unite from different countries. We have different time now, and even different languages is not an obstacle to achieve this global dialogue. Again, I would like to pay attention to our viewers. Please watch Creative Society TV and our climate monitoring videos, because we show every day what is happening on our planet. And this helps to have the truthful and really actual understanding of what is happening on our planet and how it affects everyone. And we are preparing for the global forum, which will take place on the 7th of May 2022. And I would like to pass the floor to Alexei so that he could share more about this upcoming event.
Well, thank you, Elena. And maybe just before we go to this last part, can maybe Professor Viterito, you want to add also something to those who are watching us today?
No, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, and one thing that I would be particularly interested in seeing is the establishment of a truly objective and truth-seeking journal, where all scientists can publish, and that there is no political agenda attached to that journal. As I said, I think one of the problems that we have in trying to get new ideas out there is, as we've all said, is that if it's a new idea, if it doesn't go along with the accepted paradigm and the stream of thought that's out there, then nobody wants to touch it. But the establishment of a new and sort of innovative journal in which scientists can openly dialogue about these issues, I think it'd be a fabulous thing at some point, where you put together a really, really strong editorial board. You would make sure that it's that you're doing sound science, that real hypotheses are being tested, that we're not just relying solely on modeling studies, which is a big problem with today's endeavors, and that we could get an international platform that way and get these things established in academic institutions around the world as a well-known, well-respected scientific journal where new, innovative science is done on a regular basis.
Yeah, good idea.
It's a huge problem of trying to, as you know, to get new ideas published. And in fact, one of the bad jokes here is it's not the journals today aren't what we call peer review. It's pal review, as in your friends review your articles, and it's a very, very closed circle. And you get a lot of what Orwell called groupthink. And groupthink is very, very dangerous in the scientific community because I've always said that questioning science is science. And I think we need to get back to that.
Great, thank you very much. Lisa, you wanted to add something to the discussion before we wrap up?
I would like to thank everyone, all the experts and scientists who are present here today, our dear speakers, for the support, for the voiced truth, and say that if you are watching the discussion right now and you also, this information resonates with you, you are also interested in to get into the bottom of the truth. You want to understand more what is happening to our planet, our solar system, what is the cycle, and you want to really become a hero who will save all of humanity, join us. If you are research scientist, specialist, and if you're ordinary person who are just interested, just join us in the Project Creative Society. There will be formed a platform for honest scientists to unite and voice the truth to the whole world in 100 languages. And on the global forum, which will take place on the May 7th, we already see the results of this unification. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I would also like to thank everyone, participants, and our dear viewers. Thanks for being here with us today. And thanks to these international discussions, we learn more about the problem we are facing as humanity, but we also are finding this solution together, and unification of our global potential in the building of creative society is this solution. We once again would like to announce that on the 7th of May 2022, an international online forum, Global Crisis, We Are People, We Want to Live, will be held. This large-scale and unprecedented event, organized by the independent unification of millions of people from 180 countries on the Creative Society platform, will be broadcast around the world on tens of thousands of channels and social media platforms. And this event is initiated and implemented on a volunteer basis by solely people's efforts and resources. This event is the global initiative of everyone, and we invite all the people to join. So if you have any questions and you would like to share your understandings, please comment down below under this video or send them to email info@creativesociety.com. Thanks again, and we see you soon on the Creative Society channel.
Thank you, everyone. And please, if you feel you have to say something to this world, get connected with us, because this is a time when we need each and every one of you. And this is a time when only together we can overcome all crises we are facing today. We cannot neglect they are existing. And I think it's time then we should speak honestly and truthfully. And every human life which is lost until we are uniting, until we are not acting, is a responsibility of everyone. It's our life, it's our future, it's our evolving, it's our children. So let's act together, and together we can do a lot. So let's watch the video.
Four months have passed since the time of the previous conference. And over this relatively short period, we have seen how much the progression of climate change and environmental degradation has accelerated. It's important not to remain silent, because this survival of all humanity is at stake. It is time for the truth.
We are now in a world where every single day, somewhere in the world, a climate extreme event is going to take place that will break the world record of that particular place.
The European floods this summer, or the Western North America heat wave this summer. Both of those extreme events were due to the jet stream reacting in very unusual ways, in ways that climate models did not predict would happen.
When I'm out in the field, I always hear people say that I never thought it would happen to me, and they're always surprised. Can you imagine how devastated you would be if you lost everything that you owned? If you watched the people around you, the people that you love, struggle and suffer or even die?
We have to understand we're one people on one planet, and it's up to us together to solve these problems.
We cannot leave it to our leaders. The leaders have shown that they are not up to the task. The leaders think of themselves as leaders of their own country. They don't care about the rest of the world.
The problem right now is we've all surrendered a certain amount of our power to centralized authority, and they're trying to use that to take over everything. And they've been using this excuse of anthropogenic global warming in order to try to consolidate their wealth and control. So we've got to just completely abandon and expose that.
The discussion about the climate is narrowed down to the reduction of CO2 and global warming gases. And I think the problem is much broader than that.
There's a widespread belief that climate change is a result of human activity. This is reflected in the 5th and the 6th report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. But these beliefs are wrong.
The world's governments, through the UN, formed the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Now, you would think that would be studying climate change, but they specified that you study the human causes of climate change. So they ruled out all natural factors. They said, no, we're not going to study whether the sun plays a role. We're not going to study whether volcanoes play a role. We're not going to study whether ocean current shifts play a role. And we really don't understand clouds, so we're not going to count them much. What we're going to study is human CO2 emissions, because that's what we can get a handle on. That's not the way science is supposed to work.
Anthropogenic global warming is a grandiose scientific scam of the 20th century.
Green energy is not green at all. And wind power is not green because wind farms require enormous amounts of concrete and metal to construct, disturb wildlife, harm human health with noise pollution, kill hundreds of thousands of birds each year, pollute our air and water supply. We pay high prices for something that will never meet our needs.
We need to build a humanity that lives like a beehive, and we have to build a society that puts human life first. If we combine our scientific, technological, and intellectual resources, we can solve the problem of climate change.
If we fail, we face the real possibility that if we don't get our act together and start preparing for this cataclysm, we face the very real possibility of extinguishing human life on the Earth. A supervolcano is quite capable of completely taking a species out. And I say, if we come together correctly, if we really put our hearts and our minds to the task of preparing correctly, then we could not only survive what's coming, we could be the first species on this nice little blue marble to thrive through the next cyclical destruction.
Let's follow the Creative Society's survival guide. The 3 easy steps. Learn more, spread information, and unite to build a creative society.
After all, this world is given to all mankind with only one purpose: to live and be healthy, happy, to create and not to destroy.
The Creative Society is a project of everyone. We do not collect any donations or funds that disappear in the deep pockets. Instead, each person acts in their abilities and uses resources they already have. It is your opportunity to be a part of the solution and live out your superhero potential.